Very welcome to another P&T Tea Talks. I'm Eduardo from Paper&T. We already know that the two most popular types of teas in the world are green tea for the East and black tea for the West, right? But tea has so much more than just those two types. There is so much more to discover. And today I will be preparing for you and talking to you about a white tea. We'll start discovering the world of white tea. And here, let me introduce you. Today's session is about Er Bai Ya, which is a white tea from China. But before we dive into the tea, just a quick introduction about what a white tea is. So we've learned that actually the different types of teas there are, we can get them depending on what do I do to the leaves. So that's the most important. What I do to the leaves help us classify the different types of teas. So for example, we have green tea on one side that we know, yes, if you've been watching the last sessions, we know that green teas are teas that have no oxidation, and we stop the oxidation. There are different ways. We have the example of Longjing. So we use a wok. We press the leaves in a hot wok to stop the oxidation because we need heat for that. Or we have the case of a Japanese green tea like sencha that we use steam to stop oxidation. So there is a process involved that helps us create these green teas. On the other hand, we have black teas which are fully oxidized, and in order to do that, we produce the oxidation. And what do? We break the leaves a little bit, let them be in touch with the oxygen, and oxidation happens. Okay, so on green teas we stop oxidation, on black teas we produce oxidation. And what happens with white tea? That's the question. Like, what is a white tea? What do we do different in a white tea that it doesn't end up being a green or a black? So to be honest, white teas, we don't do anything. We don't do much, actually. It's if we would have to describe a white tea would be the least processed of all teas. Okay, so basically what we do is we just black. Every tea will start with the blacking, so we just black the leaves, and then we let them dry naturally. So usually they are set on bamboo trays, on open air, and we just let them dry in a process that is called withering. So it's the same thing that happens to a flower that gets like dry. The withering process is a process that is intended to for the leaves to lose moisture. Okay, so we just let them dry naturally. The leaves start losing moisture, and at the same time, all the different components of those leaves start concentrating. So we start developing aromas and flavors. Withering is actually a process that is used in a lot of tea, in a lot of different types. So green teas can be withered as well. Black teas are withered. But usually this withering time for other type of teas is shorter than what we do with a white tea. Because with a white tea, contrary to what we do with other type of teas, that there are different methods and different techniques and different processes involved to develop aromas and flavors. With white tea, we don't want to do anything. We want to try what nature produces, say. So there are no processes involved in the developing of flavors. So just this withering that it's pretty long, usually lasts for about 3 days. So hopefully in this time all moisture will be gone. Usually all teas have to be packed within between a 4 and 3% of moisture. No more than that, because otherwise the tea would get spoiled in the packaging. So this process, hopefully we expect it to happen naturally, but if it doesn't, in some cases we apply a little heat, to dry it. But hopefully the idea is just for this to happen naturally, so we don't change, we don't alter, we don't develop other aromas. So white teas, it's super important, because this is one of the reasons why white teas are so delicate and so light, because we don't develop aromas. And since everything I feel comes from the plant, I have to have some really good stuff, some really good leaves to make a white tea be interesting, because otherwise it would be very, if it's already delicate, if I have bad leaves, then I'm gonna have just water. Okay, so let's go prepare our tea. I'm once again, can you see the teaware like properly? So once again, I'm going to Gongfu style, so a more traditional way, as we've mentioned, more leaves, little water, shorter infusion times, and multiple infusions. So here I'll start preparing. For white teas, we want to pay attention to the water of the temperature as well. They are delicate teas. So here I'm going for 80 degrees for this white tea. Something interesting about Gongfu as well, beside, here I'm using a small teapot, this is our Wu pot, and a serving pot, or Pu serving pot. And the idea of this, we are not using a filter, we're not using a tea egg or anything that will keep the leaves too tight. We let the leaves be very free to grow, to expand, to release all the aromas and flavors that they have, all the different components, to release them into the water. If the leaves are too tight, usually they don't have enough space to open up completely and to release everything, and then we end up getting infusions that are kind of actually very weak. So it's good always to have some space. Here you can see there is plenty of space here, and the leaves will have all the freedom to expand as they want. So for white teas also, if you are not a white tea drinker, and for example you're a black tea drinker, white teas at the beginning might seem a little bit too delicate, and you might not be able to find too much flavor in it, but that's the idea of a white tea. White teas are supposed to be delicate, they are supposed to be smooth, they are supposed to be sweet. I would always recommend the first time white tea first timers to let it brew a little longer, so we can extract more flavor, we can have something a bit more intense for you, until you eventually start getting used to the magic of having a white tea. Because sometimes you don't always want to be drinking something intense, something astringent. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. That's the magic of tea. There are so many options for whatever you want to. So here, I'll go ahead and start brewing it. So what we are going to have today is a white tea from China. Okay. We call it Er Bai Ya. Er Bai Ya, probably the name might be a little confusing, because for those of you who likes drinking pu'er, which is this very famous dark tea from China, you might be like, how come this is a white tea? But so the reason why that is because pu'er is actually a region. So in pu'er, I'm free to produce all types of teas, because teas are based in what I do to the leaves. So the most famous pu'ers, of course, are fermented teas, are dark teas. We'll talk about that in another session. But I can produce any type of tea there. So in this case, I have a white tea that has gone through this process, what I mentioned. We just let it dry naturally. And this tea is actually very special because it's made only of buds. It's 100% buds. I'll show you the leaves here before I pour the tea, and then you can see it's, well, of course, white tea is named after the color of the leaves. You can see that it's completely white, and these are it's 100% buds. So we just harvested the buds. I'll talk to you about that, because today I want you to finish. I'll show them a little bit more, because they are actually this tea looks beautiful. It's crazy looking. For those who are used to the classical black teas or green teas, this is actually very, very crazy looking tea. So it's kind of like velvety texture when you touch it. Let me, tea's ready. So today I want you when we finish, you have to really know what a white tea is. We learned that. And also I want to talk to you about the type of plucking, okay? So when I pluck the teas, I can choose what I pluck. Okay? So here I have a picture to make it a little bit more clear. So this is when, for most of loose leaf teas, orthodox teas are plucked manually or even mechanically sometimes, we have, this is what we usually harvest. So this is at the end of every branch of the tea bush. So this is usually what we harvest. The bud, here we have the bud, which is the can you see the bud? It's there, you can see it better. So the bud is the youngest and most tender part of the plant. That's where the plant has been focusing all her energy. All her energy has been there to be created. So it's actually the richest part of the plant. It's a plant that has the highest of everything. When we talk about tea, we talk about a plant that it gets to up to 700 different compounds with antioxidants, different polyphenols, vitamins, minerals, amino acids, and so on. So the most tender part is the more complex one. So here we have the bud, then we have the first leaf, which is still pretty good, then the second leaf, which is also good. So most of the teas, they get made with this tea set. So bud, first and second leaf. So if I was only to harvest the bud and the first, then I have an even better tea because it's more concentrated. And if I only harvest the buds, then I have the best of the best. The best that at least that plantation can offer. And that's traditionally how white teas were made. Nowadays we add a little leaves, but the idea is to have something so good from the beginning that when I do the process of turning this into a white tea, I can still get something really nice and interesting and complex in the cup. Okay, so our beautiful Er Bai Ya, we have it here. We can smell it, and white tea, here you can really feel, so to say, the plant. Okay, since there were no major transformation in the leaves, we can really experience those vegetal notes, a little grassy, flowery. To me, it's like when you are like in a summer day in a prairie or something like that, up in the mountains, where you can feel like this, like a little hay, like dry grass or some flowers, white flowers. It's very sweet, also in aroma. And we also need to consider the fact where it comes from. So usually the environment affects the flavors, and this kind of tea, actually the name puer, that we immediately relate to these like earthy fermented teas. There is a little bit of earthiness there. It's probably also from the area. It's just you can feel that it comes from puer region. And if we look at the color, the liquor, it's very, very clear, very clean. It's kind of like silvery a little bit, but it's just, it has like a little hue of like greenish, but no, it's nothing intense, nothing too dark. It's a white tea, of course, so they tend to be, if it's 100% bud, it will always be kind of like this very light silvery color. And then in the cup, the fact that a tea is light looking, or it doesn't mean that it's necessarily weak. This tea, it's light body, but it has like a nice velvety, silky kind of thing in the mouth. It doesn't have astringency like the astringency you might be able to find in a black tea. It's very delicate, sweet, refreshing, and it has like these grassy vegetal notes, a little bit of honey, sweetness. I love white teas because they are these kind of teas that you can just drink and drink and drink and drink and drink, and you never get tired of it. So it's a perfect companion for working, for studying or something. It's a really nice cup that you can enjoy throughout the day. It also, because of the quality, we can also get more infusions. It will depend on how long are you letting it steep. What's amazing about white teas is that you can let them steep very long, and there is almost no bitterness. You will never, it's really, really hard. It would be a really bad white tea if you actually start extracting bitterness. It's usually very sweet, very delicate, not like a green tea that can go bitter very easily, or a black tea that it has that like naturally. So white teas are supposed to be this sweet, delicate, fresh plant tea, like very, 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 a lot of aromas that you can relate to a plant, like grass or vegetal or flowers or fruity, like all these things that you eventually get out of a plant, you can feel them here. Okay, so white tea, the least process of all, we just let it dry naturally. And the plucking, it's very important what part I'm plucking. So in this case, this tea was made only from the buds of each branch, 1 bud per branch. We actually need about 10,000 buds to make 1 kilo of these sort of teas. So it's kind of like a lot of work actually. So I'll go here to check on some of your messages. I would love to know if you have any questions about white tea, if you like drinking white tea, if you don't like drinking white tea, what's your experience with white tea? People were drinking Nilgiri from India, dark and stormy. Then we have a P&T East Frisian blend, very intense, a little smoky. So a lot of hellos. Temperature 80 degrees. Yeah, we use 80 degrees for white teas. As we've mentioned before, teas are more delicate. It's safer. Actually, you cannot be wrong with, like, you can just let it steep a little longer, but for delicate teas, 80, 70 degrees. For this one, 80 is fine. I wouldn't go below that. Somebody's actually drinking Er Bai Ya. That's good. Yeah, whenever you are joining a session, we let you know the tea a few hours in advance in our Instagram stories. So just whenever you see it, just get it ready, and then you can drink it with us. And what happened with the rest of the leaves? Well, that happened with the tea in general. We just pluck that, and then more leaves will come out. So there are different seasons, and then the old leaves, every certain time, they will just prune them. So cut a little bit, but what is important is always the new leaves that are coming on top. When you see a field, usually there is this thing, the way that trees are shaped, it's in a way that we call the plucking table. So it tends to be flat, so it's easy for the people to pluck, and just in that surface comes like the proper young tender leaves that we want to pluck. Then every once in a while, when the bush is getting too big, they cut a little bit all the old leaves that we don't use. It depends on the tea. Some teas, what I show you here, that is just this, it can also be this, and then it will depend what part we use based on the type of tea we are producing. So I'll probably take this out for other teas and show you for other teas what are we plucking for those. They will be processed to other qualities. Exactly, that too. Sometimes it depends on what they do. They would just do like a first flush. They would just grab the best leaves. They create a tea, and then they would pluck more, and then they would create another quality or another variety. The plants are trimmed from time to time, and you harvest a new one. And so somebody's asking what would be a good pairing for a white tea. Well, white teas are so delicate that you should never have it with like dark chocolate, okay? That's for sure. White teas for me are teas that, depending on the white tea, if it's something delicate, it's just to enjoy it by himself. Usually in order to pair with something, you need to create a certain balance, and this is very easily, the delicacy of the tea, it's very easily destroyed by if you're adding something too intense. So if you want to pair stuff, I would just go more with like green teas or oolongs, or black teas are more flavorful. How many times do you usually rebrew your white tea? It will always depend on the quality of the tea, how much can you rebrew it, and also in how long are the steeping times. So for example, the instructions we give here is just 2 brewings, but it's 3 and 4 minutes, so it's long brewing, so you can get a more intense cup. But if you short the infusing time to 2 minutes or a minute, then you can get 5 easily. It will also depend on the quality of the tea and the variety of the white tea we're having. Then we have caffeine intensity for white tea. Once again, this is the richest part of the plant. This is the part that has everything. Yeah, so it has the highest caffeine content, the highest antioxidant content. So there is this belief that white tea, since they look so clear, they have less caffeine. Caffeine doesn't have a color, so it doesn't matter how intense the tea is or how light the tea is, you won't see the caffeine anyway. So actually teas that are, for example, 100% bud, they tend to have a high caffeine content. Something interesting with caffeine is that also has to do with the brewing, because caffeine gets released easier and faster at higher temperatures. So the fact that I'm brewing this with 80, it contains the caffeine a bit more, so I'll extract it infusion by infusion. But if I'm actually pouring boiling water, then I'll be extracting way more caffeine right away. That's why black teas, we tend to believe they have more caffeine content, but just because we use boiling water to brew them. But then if you have a bad quality black tea, there is no chance it has more caffeine than a really nice white tea or a really nice green tea. My favorite tea, yes, a lot of people's favorite is Er Bai Ya. How many grams for Kung Fu style? Usually I use about 7 grams per pot, but then I just let it steep very, very shortly. Just a minute or something like that, a minute and a half for a white tea, depending on how intense we want it. Once again, I drink Er Bai Ya. Greetings from Italy. Matteo, greetings back. Hope you're doing fine in Italy. How long is the infusion usually? Here we recommend the long one, so a first infusion for 3 minutes, a second infusion for 4 minutes. But it will, and that's what I would recommend for a newbie, for somebody that is not used to drinking white teas, so you can feel a little bit more those flavors and aroma. So thank you very much. Oh, Er Bai Ya, lychee flavor to me. What do you think? Totally. It has like a little like this sweet kind of like honey note from the lychee. Yeah, I agree. I totally agree with you. It's like that sweetness from lychee as well. Okay, so thank you very much. Thank you once again for joining. As you see, we are not resting because there is not much to do, so we are here. I'll be here tomorrow as well. We will keep exploring the other types of teas tomorrow, so don't forget to tune in at 4 p.m. I think we changed the time in Germany, but it will be 4 p.m. official time or whatever iPhone says. Okay, so have a lovely Sunday. Keep drinking your tea. Stay at home. Stay healthy. Bye.